Hi YouTube. Okay, this is the video that I was talking to you about earlier about the pocket fishing kit and Harvey the kitty kit bucket, or the Harvey the kitty bucket kit. Yeah, that. Anyway, so I'm gonna basically teach you guys how to make a pocket fishing kit that you can carry with you. It's very small, it's very lightweight, it's very compact, and yet it will give you all the benefits of a rod and reel, as you'll see later on when I teach you guys kind of how to use it and such as that. So stay tuned and we'll get to work on it. Okay guys, the first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get a large pill bottle like this. These you can pretty much get from any pharmacy. All I had to do to get this one is I just went up to the counter, and they looked at me a little strange when I asked for a large pill bottle, but they didn't really care. And some pharmacies will give them to you for free, some will charge you a nominal fee, just kind of the way it is. But get one of these. They are lightweight, they are reasonably watertight. Actually, they're pretty watertight. They float, so even if you are submerged, you know, hey, this thing could float to where you can grab it, and it's a good thing to have. So anyway, all right. So now let's go over some of the tackle that we're going to have in there just inherently. I like having a couple of spoons. I do. I like having a couple of spoons inside of a kit like this, just simply because they're alluring in of themselves. Do I have good luck with them? Well, it's kind of shoddy here and there, but at least I always have the chance or the shot of having a spoon. So, you know, put a couple of spoons in there and see what happens. I also like to always have a couple of lead head jigs, just for fishing. Those of us who are fishermen understand why. So, you know, I've got 3 lead head jigs with some crawfish plastic on it. So there you go. Alright, so then that leads us to the next thing. What are we always going to have in a fishing kit? Always end of story. We're always going to need hooks. We're always going to need sinkers. You know, bobbers are always a good idea. But hooks and sinkers, that's what we're going to need. So that's what we have. Alright, so obviously I can't put this entire box into here. It's not going to work. See, it doesn't fit. So, so obviously we're going to pick out some hooks and we're going to just put them in there. So, we'll just take a few. Now, you know, of course, there's always going to be people that say, well, you know, you could always carve a hook out of a tree. Yeah, that's true. You can carve a hook out of, you know, like a tree branch or a thorn or a piece of wire or something like that. That's true. And always something else. When you're putting hooks in here, have different sizes. Have a little bit of an assortment of sizes. You never know when you need a smaller hook, or you may need a bigger hook. You never know. So, you know, always have a little bit of an assortment. But anyway, back to that discussion of, well, you know, you could carve it out or you can make the hook primitively. Yeah, you could. The problem is that it will take you longer to do that, and when you do that, the amount of time that it's going to take you, when you could just simply go down to Walmart and get a box of hooks like this for, like, I don't know, a couple bucks, 99 cents, 98 cents, you know. I think this one was maybe $2. A $2 box of hooks, seriously, is worth it. You know, and I showed you, you know, I've got the small ones, I've got bigger ones. This one's a little bit bigger, you know. So, you know, you'll always have a decent array of hooks that'll always be ready for you. Okay? So, there you go. So now we got it loaded with some hooks. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to want to have some sinkers. So we're going to load it up with some sinkers. Now then, the next order of business is obviously bobbers. Um, Now, here's something else to be aware of, okay? A lot of people will say, well, you know, I fish artificial. Yeah, fishing artificial is great. And I'm not going to say that it doesn't work. But the amount of equipment that you need to fish artificially and be successful consistently, you need a lot more equipment than what you will to fish live using live bait. So that's why I tend to fish live bait. It's a lot easier to do, it's a lot easier to use, or live-ish. Like I said, obviously those dough balls are not live bait, but they're live-ish, and they work well with the system. So anyway, with that being said, so basically we got a couple of beach ball bobbers. These were like, I think this whole pack was maybe 99 cents, 98 cents. Put a couple of bobbers in there, you're happy. Okay, so now that's done. Now the only thing that's left here is to go ahead and put some fishing line on this thing and turn the outside of this then into a reel. So stay tuned and we'll get started on that. Okay, so now we're going to actually go about putting fishing line on this thing. Okay. Now, before we do all that, I'm going to have a real quick discussion with you on fishing line. Okay? In the area that I'm at, in Indiana, the thicker the fishing line, obviously, the easier it is for the fish to see it. If the fish see your fishing line, they won't bite your hook. That's just the way it is, especially around here. So, because we are overfished a lot of the time. And a lot of the places that we are fishing, we're overfished. So, you know, that is the way it is. So, you know, you use a little bit less thicker diameter line than what some people would. Around here, most of the time, all you really need is an 8-pound test. That's it. You don't really need, you know, 20-pound test or something like that unless you're doing night fishing and you're going for catfish. 20-pound test is honestly most of the time a little bit excessive. If I have room for it, yeah, I'll carry 20-pound test from time to time, but like I said, it's excessive. So at this point, I would recommend having 8-pound test. A light blue color is always good, especially for around here in Indiana. Clear is also a good choice. Now that we're talking about fishing lines, if we're looking at braided or mono lines, or not mono, if we're looking at braided lines like spider wire and stuff like that, a lot of the times those lines are colored, and a lot of the time colored lines, fish have a tendency to see them, and so they're just you're going to get a lot more hits off of a simple mono fishing line that you bought. I think this entire spool for me was like, I don't know, $5. So I mean, honestly, I bought this a long time ago and it's still working for me. So the moral of the story here, folks, is to use just some simple mono that you picked up, monofilament line that's, you know, 8 to 10, maybe 12-pound test, because quite honestly, this is not the type of pocket fishing kit. I mean, this is not the fishing kit that you're gonna haul in jaws or anything, you know. So really, the fish that you're gonna catch are not gonna be, you know, humongous. And if they are going to be humongous, well, then you would use heavier line, and obviously you would have other things in your kit than what there is. But for this area, this is all you need. Okay, so now we've had that discussion. I understand that a lot of you may not Maybe some of you haven't been fishing, maybe some of you aren't accomplished fishermen, so I'll help you out, and I'll teach you the very simple knots that you're going to need to know to fish pretty much any time. So there's a couple of knots that you need to know, and these knots will save your bacon a whole bunch of times. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is, since I think you can see that, to tie the line to the reel, or to the pill bottle here, what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to make a loop, okay? Just make a real simple loop like that. And then since we got this loop, then we're just going to take it and tie an overhand knot. Alright, so now you got a knot like that. Alright, the tag end for this knot is, for this one, is really not all that important, and as a side benefit, then, and whenever you make a knot like this, you kind of want to make your loops large, especially with fishing line, just because it's easier to work with. Now with this particular knot, it is not going to close up on you, and it's not going to open up on you. It's not a slip knot. It'll stay where it's at, you know, indefinitely. It'll stay where it's at, or it's going to break in so doing. So, you know, and then what you do is you just feed your back end. So there's your knot, okay? There's the loop. I'm just going to feed that back on through. And then now this can slide pretty freely, okay? And so then now I'm just going to put this right over the top of my football like this, tighten it down, put my thumb right there to hold it and keep it from rotating, and then now I'm just going to rotate the bottle, and I'm just going to wrap it around. I'm not really worried at this point about twisting my line, because it doesn't matter. This is not a reel. It will have the same type of benefits as a reel, but I really don't have to worry about it twisting when I'm putting it on here, because it's going to twist and untwist on its own. So there's really no reason for me to worry about the line twisting as I'm putting it on here. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wrap a whole bunch of it on here. Okay. So now that I got a bunch of line on this thing, what I'm going to do is, you'll see there's notches on the side of this thing, or grooves. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these grooves, and I'm just going to bring my line right up against it, and I'm going to bring it right across. Okay, and then I'm going to take my lid, and I'm going to close it on top of that line. This will hold that line so that when I get ready to tie my hook and my sinker on it and everything like that, that way I don't have to worry about all this line just untangling itself off of my reel or my bottle. So this is kind of like your line stop, if you think about it that way. So that now I've got this, oh, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 foot length. Okay, so anyway, you find the end of your line, and then you tie your hook on it. And for those of you who do not know how to properly tie on a hook, well, that's why I'm here to teach you. Incidentally, all these knots and everything like this that I've showed you will work for a reel just the same as it will this. So I do my reels the same way that I did the peel bottle. So there you go. Alright, here it is. Okay, so you see the hook, and there's an eye. Maybe so. Yeah, there's an eye in that hook. Okay, so you take the end of your line, and you go through the eye once, then you get your hook hanging on your line like so. And then you feed your line back through. This is the way I do it. There's another way of doing it, but this way is simpler and easier to do, and that's why we're doing this one. And so basically, remember what I told you about big loops? Okay, this is where it really helps. So basically all you do is you've got one big loop. This is the end of the loop, and resting on that loop is the hook, and the two tag ends are back here, okay, in my left hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically just simply do a granny knot, or an overhand knot, I guess. Okay, so now all I've done is I've made an overhand knot. Okay, so now I've got my loop over here. Yeah. So now I've got my loop over here on my left hand. Okay, so then all I'm going to do is I'm going to open that loop in between my fingers here. I'm going to grab a hold of that shank of that hook. I'm going to pull it back. I'm going to pull it back through. I'm going to make sure that loop goes over that eye so it doesn't get all tangled up and caught up. And then here's where the knot tightens. Okay? And then this tag end, then, all I have to do is grab a hold of it, make sure I've got it good and tightened, and then I trim the tag end. Alright, so now we've got our hook tied on the end of our line, and we're ready to go. Okay, now the next part is kind of up to preference, and it depends on your environment. But I like to have my sinker right about 4 to 5, maybe 6 inches above the eye of my hook. So just with these split shots, then all you gotta do is feed the line through the mouth of it, and then once you got the line fed through, then you just bite down. Anyway, now we have your sinker and your hook. Now all you need left is your bobber. Most of the time, I like to fish about a foot, foot and a half above, with my hook depth being about a foot, foot and a half below my bobber. Sometimes less, sometimes more. Once again, it depends on your environment and stuff like that. Reason why I like these pencil bobbers though is because they're spring loaded, so that this allows me to just simply feed the line through that little hook there, and then boom, that line is stuck to that bobber and it's not going to go anywhere. So that's good. The other thing that's great about it is the way it's designed. Wherever the weight is, so wherever the sinker is, if it's floating and the weight is hanging like this off the bottom, my pencil bobber will be sticking straight up. If, however, my weight is sitting on the bottom, then my pencil bobber will lay over. Okay, so that will tell me, that's a depth indicator for me to tell me, you know, hey, your sinker's on the bottom. And if my sinker's on the bottom, then obviously my hook is on the bottom. If my hook's on the bottom, you know, if that's what I want it to do, that's fine. But the problem is that I won't have the sensitivity off of this bobber that I would normally have. So, you know, I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your time. Defend your homes wisely.